Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of sources here diving deep into a phenomenon that's rapidly changing the digital landscape,
Yeah.
especially in China. Virtual characters, or I guess what the sources call virtual digital humans.
It's a fascinating area, isn't it? You've got technology, culture, even economic shifts, all sort of converging, and it's really accelerated in just the last few years.
Absolutely. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut to understanding this really dynamic area. We're going to try and pull out the most important nuggets, maybe some surprise insights from this material you've shared.
Yeah, our mission is to help you see beyond just the surface level, understand how these characters are defined, what's really driving their development, specifically in China,
Right.
and some, well, truly unexpected influences too. And maybe most interestingly, the surprisingly practical ways they're being used over there.
Ways that, like you said, often quite different from what you might expect based on trends, say, elsewhere. So maybe to start, let's just get our bearings. What exactly do these sources mean when they talk about a virtual digital human, that term SU? Is there one clear definition?
That's a great starting point. And the sources tell us there isn't one single, strict, universally agreed upon definition. That's actually important to note right off the bat.
Okay, so it's a bit fuzzy.
A little bit. But they do highlight common characteristics, things that generally apply.
And those common points are, what makes something a virtual digital human?
Essentially, these are characters with a human-like appearance. They have a recognizable face, a gender, often a defined personality. They use language, facial expressions, body movements, much like a real person would.
Okay.
And critically, they're described as having the ability to think, to perceive their environment, and importantly, to communicate with humans.
Right, so they look, act, and interact like us, more or less.
Yeah.
But the sources also point out something interesting about how they're brought to life. It's not just one method, is it?
That's a key point, yeah. While many might just assume they're purely AI-driven, the sources clarify that these virtual characters can actually have a real person inside. Someone driving their actions and voice, like a VTuber using performance capture.
Ah, okay. Like motion capture.
Exactly. Or they can be entirely driven by AI. And the interesting thing is, both types get classified under the same umbrella term. It shows how broad the definition is right now.
And this isn't some slow, gradual trend we're talking about. The material you shared indicates a really rapid emergence, starting around a specific time.
That's right. The sources note they really started appearing very rapidly, particularly around 2020.
2020. Okay. What happened then? What was it that fueled that sudden acceleration?
It seems like several factors kind of came together. One significant driver the sources mentioned is the economic slowdown that was already happening before 2020. There was this growing inclination, across different industries to look for ways to replace human labor with machines or automated systems where it made sense.
So businesses were already thinking about efficiency, cost saving, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That mindset was already there.
Right.
And then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic hit.
Which definitely ramped up the need to avoid physical contact, yeah.
Precisely. The pandemic just accelerated that search for and the adoption of virtual or remote solutions. That included virtual replacements for roles that used to need a human physically present.
So you had this economic pressure suddenly meeting this urgent need for remote interaction. Was the technology actually ready for it, though?
According to the sources, yes. That's the third piece. They emphasize that the crucial technologies reached a, let's say, a sufficient level of maturity right around that time.
Like, what kind of tech are we talking about?
We're talking about things like text-to-speech, TTS, much better AI, 3D scanning techniques, sophisticated performance capture becoming more accessible, and of course, high-definition computer graphics, CG. These elements all kind of clicked into place, making these virtual characters much more viable, much more realistic than before.
Okay, so you've got the economic shift, the pandemic push, and the tech maturity creating this perfect storm almost.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the sources reveal some surprising, maybe even counterintuitive cultural influences behind this boom in China.
Yeah, this part of the material is genuinely fascinating. One major stimulus that's explicitly highlighted is the 2019 movie Alita, Battle Angel.
Alita, right, the cyberpunk film. Based on that Japanese manga gum with the big eyes, the incredible CGI character.
That's the one. And the source points out its absolutely massive box office success in China get this, it actually earned more there than it did in North America.
Wow, seriously, more than North America.
Yeah, and this huge popular reception was apparently noted as a direct stimulus for many researchers and engineers working on virtual characters in China.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
A Hollywood blockbuster directly inspiring tech development thousands of miles away.
According to the source, absolutely. They even link it to James Cameron and the Avatar production studio, famous for pushing the boundaries with performance capture technology.
Which was obviously used heavily to bring Alita herself to life, that cyborg character.
Right. But here's the deeper insight the source pulls out. The movie apparently intentionally leveraged that slightly unsettling, uncanny valley feeling in Alita's early depiction.
You mean that feeling when something looks almost human but not quite right?
Exactly that feeling. The source says it wasn't a flaw in the CGI. It was a deliberate choice to emphasize her cyborg nature, her otherness.
So they actually used the virtual character's inherent digital quality as part of the storytelling.
Precisely. And the source notes that as the movie progressed, viewers' perception of her shifted. By the end, there was this feeling of fusion, People accepted her as a character despite her digital origins. And the source suggests this deliberate and ultimately successful use of the virtual character's unique qualities, rather than just trying to perfectly mimic reality or hide the digital aspect, was a powerful lesson for developers in China.
That's a really cool takeaway. It's not just about chasing perfect realism, but about understanding how the virtual nature itself can be a tool or a part of the identity.
Yeah, it highlights how popular culture can sometimes provide these unexpected blueprints or inspirations for technical innovation. It's not always a linear path.
And speaking of cultural roots, the source makes it very clear that a significant amount of inspiration, perhaps unsurprisingly, came from Japan.
Oh, absolutely. That influence is undeniable in the material provided. It comes up repeatedly.
And it stretches back surprisingly far, even to the anime Super Dimension Fortress Macross from way back in 1982.
Yes, believe it or not, the character Lin Minmei in that show, she was voiced by a real singer-songwriter, Mari Ijima. And Minmei became this huge hit virtual singer within the show's fictional world.
Right, she was an idol singer in the story.
Exactly, and the source notes that some articles actually describe her as potentially the world's first virtual singer in concept, at least if not the technology we think of today.
The very first. Wow. That's a remarkable claim about the conceptual origins.
It is, isn't it? And the source highlights this idea that Macross might have been one of the first times the concept of Mo, that feeling of strong affection or adoration often directed towards fictional characters, was directly linked with technology and media production in this way.
Linking Mo and tech.
Oh.
Interesting. Okay, fast forward a couple of decades to 2007, and you have Vocaloid's Hatsune Miku, a name many more people probably recognize.
Miku was absolutely huge. The source credits her with playing a major role in really kickstarting Chinese online subculture, especially Mo culture.
How so?
Well, there's even this direct lineage pointed out. Apparently the site AkiFun, which was popular for sharing Japanese anime, got overwhelmed with Miku videos. So volunteers created a separate site just for sharing Hatsune Miku videos called Miku Funds.
Just for Miku?
Just for Miku initially. And Miku Funds eventually evolved into Bilibili.
No way. Bilibili, the huge video platform now, started as a Miku fan site.
That's the connection the source draws, a direct link from Hatsune Miku fan videos to one of China's major digital platforms today. Pretty incredible.
That is incredible. And of course, the more recent wave of Japanese VTubers, the ones popular on platforms like YouTube, that was another significant stimulus mentioned.
Yes, the source confirms that boom, centered around YouTube, was definitely another key factor inspiring Chinese developers and companies.
Okay, so given this deep, long-standing Japanese influence, from Macross to Miku to modern VTubers, you might expect China's virtual characters to look and act pretty much just like Japanese VTubers. But the source points out some clear divergences, right? Where do they differ?
They definitely differ. Despite all that inspiration, the sources highlight that China actually has far fewer of those 2D anime-style VTube characters. The overwhelming focus there is on 3D characters.
Interesting. More 3D. And is the purpose different as well? Are they used differently?
That seems to be a major distinction, yes. China's virtual characters tend to be much more practical, more utility-focused. You see them used as news announcers, as actors in specific roles, as receptionists, customer service agents, roles often tied directly to business functions. The source suggests this focus on practical applications might be because their development has been so closely linked to commercial use cases right from the beginning, less purely entertainment-driven, perhaps.
What's another kind of foundational difference the source notes between the two markets?
One really interesting point is the widespread adoption of smart speakers and AI assistants in China. Think devices like Xiaomi's Xiaoai or Baidu's Xiaodu.
Right, those are very common there.
Exactly. The source argues this provided a crucial foundation. Essentially, you already had this massive user base comfortable interacting with AI voices. Adding a visual, human-like interface to those existing AI capabilities is a pretty natural next step towards creating a virtual character.
So the visual layer is built on top of an existing audio AI infrastructure. Unlike Japan, where the source notes smart speakers were maybe more of a fleeting trend, didn't quite take hold in the same way.
Right. That broad base of existing AI assistant infrastructure in China seems to have created a much more fertile ground for integrating these visual virtual characters in a way that maybe didn't exist to the same extent elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the definition, kind of fuzzy, the drivers, economy, pandemic, tech, the surprising inspirations, Alita, anime, Miku, and these key differences from Japan, 3D focus, utility, AI foundation. Now let's get into the specifics. The sources provide a really rich list of these practical applications you mentioned. Your news announcers seem to be one of the most widespread uses.
Absolutely. This is a really big one. It's particularly beneficial for, say, text-based media organizations, newspapers, online outlets that don't traditionally have their own video anchors or expensive broadcast studios. Using VCs makes it remarkably easy and cheap for them to start producing video news content.
How does that actually work? What's the workflow look like?
The process, as described in the sources, typically involves synthesizing the virtual character's appearance, often based initially on a human model, maybe a real anchor. Then they use text-to-speech, TTS technology, to deliver the news script in a natural-sounding voice. And they add some simple, often predefined actions or gestures.
So the goal is basically...
The goal is to produce a news broadcast using just text scripts, maybe some images and video clips. It drastically cuts down on the traditional costs and complexity. No need for cameras, studios, lighting, multiple human anchors for different shifts.
Makes sense. And why is this becoming so popular now? Just the cost?
Cost is a big part, but the sources also note a growing audience preference for video news. People want to listen while they're commuting or doing chores or just relaxing, maybe without having to stare at text.
Yeah, I get that.
Plus, video is just far more effective for distribution and engagement on social media platforms compared to plain text articles, so it's a much lower investment for potentially much wider reach.
Are there specific examples mentioned in the sources of these virtual news anchors?
Yes, several key ones are highlighted. Xinhua, the state news agency, uses VCs developed by a company called Sogu. They have Zhao Hao for male anchor roles and Zhao Meng for female roles.
Okay.
PingPi, which is a major online news outlet, kind of like China's BuzzFeed News in some ways, employs Baidu's Xiaofei to handle their morning and evening news summary segments.
And even the big national broadcaster, CCTV, are they using them too?
Yes, CCTV is definitely exploring VCs. Their web media arm uses one called Xiaoxi, which is another one developed by Baidu. The source specifically highlights Xiaoxi for its higher level of precision.
Precision in what way?
Things like, well, the source mentions potentially deliberate design choices aimed at specific audiences, carefully tuned voice intonation to sound authoritative but engaging, and very accurate lip syncing, which is crucial for realism.
Do TV stations use them differently in other contexts outside of straight news reading?
They do, yeah, especially in more dynamic live programming. Hunan TV, a big provincial broadcaster known for entertainment shows, uses a VTube method, so performance capture for their VC, Xiaoyang.
So there is a person behind that one.
Yes. This allows for real-time interaction in their variety shows. You have a human performer working off-stage, capturing their movements and voice, and then Zhao Yang appears on the main stage via AR synthesis, interacting live with the human cast members. It's leveraging that person-inside approach for spontaneity.
Gotcha. And I think I saw a mention of CCTV experimenting with VCs almost as potential star personalities themselves, building a following like a human celebrity anchor.
That's another interesting direction they're exploring, treating these VCs not just as tools, but as individuals who can build their own fan base, similar to how certain popular human anchors like Wang Bingbing, who became a viral sensation, have done,
Right.
creating virtual stars.
The applications get even more niche and frankly, kind of sci-fi. A VR journalist, for instance. What's that about?
Right. Xinhua, again, has this VR journalist called Xiao Zheng, developed by Tencent. The source describes this one as having a very high degree of visual realism, super lifelike. But what's interesting here is that its movements are apparently algorithmically generated, not from performance capture. It moves based on AI prediction.
So what's the idea behind a VR journalist? Where does it report from?
The concept described is that Xiao Zheng can accompany reporting in virtual spaces. The prime example mentioned is reporting from China's space station, Tiangong.
How does that work?
They create a highly precise CG digital twin, a virtual replica of the space station. And then Zhao Zheng appears inside this virtual replica, navigating around, presenting reports, showing viewers things. It really blurs the lines between real footage, simulated environments, and virtual presenters.
Oh, that takes virtual reporting to a whole different level of immersion, or maybe simulation.
Definitely. And beyond news, VCs are also being developed for clear, practical information delivery, making things more accessible.
Like multilingual announcers.
Exactly. iFlyTech, a company really well known for its voice recognition and synthesis technology, developed a VC called Xiaoqing. The standout feature here is that she can speak multiple languages. The source mentions English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean specifically.
Okay.
And the notable thing is she maintains the same underlying voice quality across all these different languages.
How do they manage that? That seems tricky.
The method involves extracting specific vocal characteristics, the timbre, the tone from the original voice data during the synthesis process. So the voice itself remains consistent, even when speaking different languages.
Is it perfect?
The source notes that, for example, the Japanese intonation isn't quite perfect yet, but it's still clearly understandable and highly functional for conveying information.
So where would you typically see something like Xiaoqing being used?
Oh, the potential uses are pretty broad. Think airports or train stations for announcements in multiple languages, various public service points, government offices, banks, tourist attractions. Anywhere, information needs to be conveyed clearly and accurately to a diverse audience.
And speaking of accessibility, one application that really struck me as potentially impactful is a sign language interpreter.
Yes, that was a specific project highlighted, done by CCTV and Baidu for the Beijing Winter Olympics. The VC takes text or spoken audio input and translates it into standardized sign language gestures performed by the virtual character.
That seems incredibly valuable.
It has immense potential, doesn't it? If you combine that with real-time voice recognition and text processing tech, you could potentially use this live at events, press conferences, or even integrate it as a standard feature on smart TVs. It could make information so much more accessible to deaf and hard-of-hearing communities.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears a bit, China is obviously massive in e-commerce, particularly live commerce. Are VCs showing up there too?
They are, yes. Yeah. Though the source notes that the initial approach wasn't maybe as successful as hoped, the first idea was just having a tireless VC reading product descriptions 24/7.
Like an automated QVC host. Why didn't that take off?
Because, as the source points out, live commerce really thrives on that real-time interaction, right? Customers ask questions in the chat, the host reacts to sales spikes, there's a feeling of spontaneity and connection.
Right, it's very dynamic.
Exactly. Simply having a VC read a pre-written script, even if it never got tired, lacked that crucial engagement element. It felt flat.
So how did they adapt? What's the solution?
They shifted pretty quickly to using performance capture systems. mocap again. This allows a human operator sitting off camera to drive the VC's actions, expressions, and voice in real time.
Ah, back to the person inside.
Precisely. This enables genuine interaction with the live chat, spontaneous reactions, answering questions on the fly. The sources give examples like Lingyan Light's M Sister M and JD.com's VV Zihan, which was apparently used during the huge 11/11 Singles Day online shopping festival.
Yeah, but wait, if there's a person performing anyway, why go through the trouble of using a VC? Why not just put the human performer on camera directly? What's the advantage?
That's a fair question. And the source outlines several compelling advantages from a business perspective.
Like what?
Well, with the VC, you can make instant changes to their appearance. Clothes, makeup, hairstyle, even the background. You can make it look like they're broadcasting from a beach or a mountaintop or a fancy studio, all with just a click. Total flexibility.
Okay, instant makeovers and location changes.
Exactly. You can also easily modify the character's appearance to be more idealized, more conventionally beautiful, or even create entirely fictional characters that perfectly represent a brand's image.
Oh, I see.
And here's a key point for running things like 247 live streams. Multiple different human performers can operate the same virtual character across different shifts, so the face of the stream remains consistent even if the operators change.
Right, continuity and branding. Okay, that makes more sense. What about other practical uses? Banking, maybe?
Yep, banking is another area. Pudong Development Bank uses a VC named Xiaopu, developed by Baidu.
And what role does Xiaopu play in the bank?
It utilizes voice recognition and AI for conversational interaction. So in the bank branches, Xiaopu might appear on large displays to greet customers, ask what they need, and guide them to the appropriate counter or service area.
Like a virtual concierge.
Sort of, yeah. And it's also integrated into the bank's mobile app where it can answer customer questions about procedures, account details, interest rates, that sort of thing.
Is it convincing?
The source describes it as having a clearly artificial voice and a standard CG appearance, so maybe not aiming for super realism, but it provides functional, AI-driven conversation to handle common queries.
And in education, are they teaching classes?
There's an example from JD, the e-commerce giant. They have a VC called Xiaoni, used in their online training courses for employees or partners. This character essentially replaces what might have previously been just a synthesized voice narrating slides.
So it adds the visual element to the narration.
Right. It provides a visual instructor figure to read out the lecture content. The source notes, however, that this particular application seems primarily focused on reading content aloud. It's not designed to be conversational or answer student questions.
Got it. Now, the sources point to entertainment as, perhaps unsurprisingly, the area where VCs are most prevalent and where a lot of the really cutting-edge advancements seem to be happening.
Yes, that's definitely true, particularly within the gaming industry. Epic Games and Tencent collaborated on a project called Siren, which is highlighted as a prime example. It uses incredibly sophisticated performance capture to create stunningly realistic game characters.
Like movie-level stuff in games.
Pretty much. The source suggests this level of realism and performance capture is becoming so standard in big-budget games now that titles without it can feel somewhat outdated or less immersive.
And this focus on entertainment tech, it seems closely linked to that future vision of VR and the metaverse we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. The source sees a direct line there. The advancements being made in creating believable, interactive virtual characters for games and entertainment are seen as building the core technology needed for truly immersive VR experiences and potentially the metaverse. A lot of future tech developments are expected to spin out from this sector.
What about short video platforms? Like Douyin, China's version of TikTok. Are VCs big there too?
They've certainly made a splash. Lu Yexi, created by a company called Zhongyu Tech and showcased on Douyin, is mentioned as a key example.
What's special about Lu Yexi?
The source describes her as being very high quality, visually stunning, and her content apparently blends elements of classical Chinese horror and folklore with science fiction themes. It's a unique aesthetic.
Did it catch on?
Massively. She apparently gained over 8 million fans very quickly after debuting.
Wow. So what's the business goal behind creating a super high-profile artistic VC like that just for short videos? Is it just entertainment?
The source suggests it serves primarily as a showcase, really, a demonstration of the production studio's technical skills and creative capabilities. It shows potential clients what they can do in terms of creating high-quality virtual humans and animation.
So it's like a high-tech demo reel that's also IP.
Exactly. It builds buzz, acts as intellectual property development, and can attract partners for advertising deals, merchandise, or other projects based on the character. Now, finally, the sources introduce this really unique concept, something they term real existence, virtual characters.
Real existence. That sounds almost philosophical. What does that mean?
It does sound a bit awkward, doesn't it? The source acknowledges the term isn't perfect, but uses it because it seems to describe a distinct category of projects they've encountered, focused more on AI development and, well, being, rather than just performing a task.
Okay, tell us about these. What are the examples?
One major example is Hua Zibing. She's presented as a virtual female student enrolled at the prestigious Tsinghua University, specifically in the computer science department.
A virtual student. Seriously.
Apparently so. It's a joint project between the university and Joyce, which is an independent VC developer that actually originated from Microsoft's research labs in China.
And what's the focus with Wazibing? What does she do?
The primary focus seems to be on AI development, building this vast knowledge base so she can learn, understand complex topics, and answer questions intelligently. The source mentions she can already perform creative tasks too, like singing and painting.
So what do the sources suggest is the deeper purpose here? Why create a virtual student focused on AI?
The source speculates that the ultimate goal might be exploring how to give AI more human-like qualities, personality, maybe even emotion eventually, pushing the boundaries of AI beyond just being a functional tool towards something more relatable. It's quite ambitious.
Definitely sounds like it. And Huawei, the tech giant, has one of these real existence VCs as well.
Yes, Huawei introduced one called Yunsheng, presented as a virtual employee of the company.
A virtual employee. Doing what?
Well, uniquely, the source notes that Yunsheng's voice, actions, and facial expressions are reportedly fully generated by AI algorithms, not driven by performance capture from a human actor.
Fully AI-generated performance.
That's the claim highlighted. As for the specific purpose, the source says it's still somewhat unclear based on the limited public information, but speculation leans towards it potentially serving as an internal knowledge base, or maybe a sophisticated PR interface, capable of answering complex questions about Huawei's products, technologies, and business strategies.
Fascinating. It seems like so many of these developments, especially these high-end AI-focused ones, are being viewed through the lens of future digital worlds. The source connects all of this quite strongly to the concept of the metaverse, doesn't it?
That's definitely a central theme running through the material. These virtual characters, these digital humans, are being explicitly positioned by many companies as the gateway, the primary entry point for humans to interact with whatever the metaverse turns out to be.
Right, because so many tech companies, especially in China, are seeing the metaverse as potentially the next major computing platform, the next internet.
Precisely. Influenced significantly by efforts from companies like Meta, formerly Facebook, many companies are investing heavily in exploring this space. The source suggests that this intense focus on developing VCs now is partly about building the necessary foundational technology, acquiring the know-how, and maybe establishing brand recognition in anticipation of the metaverse becoming a more significant reality down the line.
Getting ready for what's next.
Exactly, laying the groundwork.
And some companies, like Baidu, are even going so far as to build their own specific metaverse platforms.
Correct. Baidu is actively developing its own platform, which is called Shurang. The source describes its visual design as this interesting blend imagery of ancient Chinese temples mixed with futuristic cityscapes.
Kind of a unique aesthetic.
Yeah. And they notably made claims, like it would include a virtual concert hall capable of holding 100,000 avatars simultaneously. Big ambitions.
Definitely ambitious. Now, while there's clearly a lot of investment and enthusiasm around the metaverse concept, the source material you've shared also includes a pretty notable critical perspective on its current state, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. The author of one of the key sources expresses some clear personal skepticism regarding the metaverse as it exists, or is being hyped today.
Okay. What are the main criticisms that are raised?
Well, they point out that many current metaverse platforms require this deliberate act to access them. You have to consciously decide to go into this separate virtual place. It feels like a closed world, not seamlessly integrated with our lives.
Right, it's a destination you have to travel to, digitally speaking.
Exactly. They also note a heavy reliance, at least currently, on financial incentives. What the source bluntly calls money, referring to things like virtual land speculation, NFTs, play-to-earn mechanics.
The whole crypto Web3 angle.
Right. And the source worries that this heavy focus on financialization might actually deter many potential users who aren't interested in speculation. It raises concerns about VR fatigue or even metaverse fatigue setting in.
So the core question becomes, if that speculative money-making element fades away, will there be enough intrinsic appeal, enough genuinely compelling experiences to keep people engaged in these virtual worlds?
That's exactly the question the source poses. What's left when the hype and the easy money dry up? They also float alternative views, suggesting that maybe an AR-like world augmented reality, where virtual elements are overlaid onto our real environment, might feel more natural or less demanding for many people.
Or maybe just improving the tools we already have.
Or perhaps, yeah, for many practical needs, simply enhancing existing tools like Zoom or other collaboration platforms might be sufficient without needing a full-blown immersive 3D world.
And this seems like a key conclusion regardless of the exact form the future digital space takes, whether it's fully immersive VR or AR overlays or something else entirely.
The source's conclusion on this point is pretty firm. Virtual characters, these digital humans, will be indispensable. They are seen as the crucial interface, the intermediaries between the physical world and whatever future digital realm emerges.
How so?
They'll be our guides, our representatives, our assistants, maybe even our companions in these new spaces. They provide that relatable, human-like point of interaction with complex digital systems.
So China's intensive focus on developing VCs isn't just about these immediate practical uses we've discussed, like news anchors or bank tellers. It's seen as a broader strategic effort.
That's the argument. It's about accumulating the fundamental technology, the expertise, and the user acceptance needed for whatever that next digital frontier turns out to be, building the essential building blocks for the future interface with the digital world.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What does this deep dive really tell us? We've journeyed through how China is, well, incredibly rapidly developing these virtual characters.
Yeah, driven by some really significant forces, economic shifts, the pandemic push, tech maturity, but also, fascinatingly, influenced by these surprising sources. Everything from classic anime and early virtual idols to huge Hollywood blockbusters like Alita.
And we've seen how they're moving far beyond just entertainment, becoming integrated into some incredibly practical roles. News broadcasting, banking, education, live commerce, even really specialized areas like sign language interpretation.
It shows a real focus on utility alongside the entertainment aspect, and we've also touched on their strategic positioning, how they're seen as these essential interfaces, maybe our future guides, in the still pretty uncertain landscape of digital worlds like the metaverse.
Yeah, this deep dive really highlights a future where that boundary, that line between the real and the virtual, seems to be getting blurrier faster than ever. And these virtual characters are poised right on that edge, mediating our experience.
It definitely challenges us to think about what presence means, what interaction means, even what authenticity means in a world that's increasingly digitally mediated.
Absolutely. So here's maybe a final provocative thought for you, our listener, to consider, building on everything we've just discussed. If virtual characters do become our primary interfaces, our trusted guides in these future digital spaces, if they become our bank tellers, our news anchors, our shopping assistants, maybe even developing into virtual friends or companions, how might that fundamentally change the way we learn, the way we work, and perhaps most profoundly, how we interact not just with technology, but with each other?